Today's daf is daf Mem Dalit. Now we'll begin with the Gemara. We did the Mishnah yesterday. Arba achim salket daitoch. The Mishnah, if you take it literally, is talking about only 4 brothers. There were no other brothers. And that's impossible because the Mishnah is trying to tell us that if all 4 brothers died, their respective wives fall for Yevamot. So there must be other brothers. Ela Ema, we have to change the gears in the Mishnah. Arba me'achim. 4 of the brothers died. So there were 6 brothers, let's say. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zvulun. And Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda married women. And after their death, these 4 ladies fall for Yevamot, Yisachar, and Zvulun. The Mishnah establishes that if the Gadol Shebahem, let's say we have 2 brothers that survived, Yisachar and Zvulun, the older of the brothers, that's Yisachar, can marry and be miyabim all 4 of the wives of Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda if he so desires. Gemara says, "V'shavkilei, should Beis Din really allow him to do so?" V'tanya, we learned in a brisa. The brisa interprets the pasuk in the parasha of Yibum, Devarim Perek Chafei, v'karu lo ziknei iro, that the Zkanim call him in. That means the Beis Din call him, the Yavam, into the Beis Din, and hein v'lo shluchan, they should do it themselves, not send any intermediaries or agents. V'dibru elav, what exactly are they speaking to the Yavam? Melamed shemasiin lo eita hugenes lo, they give him a very good piece of recommendation or advice. She'im hoyahu yeled, if he's young, v'hi, and the Yevamot is zekena, she's old, or reverse, who, the Yavam is zaken, vehi, and the Yevamot is a yolda, she's very young. Omrlo, Beis Din tell him, you know what? Malachai tel yalda, why you're so much older than her? It's not going to be a healthy marriage. And if you're younger than her, malachai tel skena, klach etzel shekemoscha, go marry someone in your age bracket. If you're young, marry a young woman. If you're older, marry an older woman. Al tasin tota beisecha, and this is the Eitzel Genis. You're going to create friction in your life, in your house, in your marriage, if you marry someone who's totally out of the league of your age. So how is it possible that this Yavam is going to marry 4 different ladies, and how's he going to support them? Beis Din should really give him a good piece of advice under the halacha of V'dibru elav, and tell him this is not a good idea. You should opt for chalitza rather than yibum. L'tricha di'efshali. We're talking about a person, let's call him Yisachar, of very fine means. He's in the, upper class financial category. He's got the status of a rich person. He has enough money to support all these 4 Yevamos, and maybe perhaps we could add they're relatively in the same age bracket. Why didn't the Mishnah tell me a bigger chiddush? That not only were there 4 Yevamos, but there were 6 Yevamos, so 10 Yevamos. I don't know, Nami. And the Gemara says, Eitzel Tovaka Mashmal and Arba in Fei Lo. Up to the number 4, he can marry these 4 women. Why? The Gemara establishes that the Talmud Chacham has an ona mi erev Shabbos li erev Shabbos. That's a minimum of 1 week, once a week. And the Gemara Ksubas Samach Beis derives this from a drasha from the pasuk Asher Pirio Yitem Be'ito, and that's called Leil Shabbos. And on Leil Shabbos, he's Mekayim its mitzvah of ona for the entire month. That's the barest minimum. And therefore, if he divides up 4 Leil Shabbosos for 4 wives, 4 Yevamos in this case, then he's covered his bases as far as the chiyuv of Ona is concerned. There are more women, he won't be able to fulfill his mitzvah of Ona of the Talmud Chacham. The Mishnah says that Mishal Yanasui Mistei Nochim Umeis, then Yibum of one of them after he dies, or chalitza of one of them, would be sufficient to pater up the tzara. The Gemara asks, maybe the Torah says that he has to be miyabim both of them. Each one comes with a zikas yibum, and why shouldn't we obligate him to follow through with that zikas yibum, either with yibum or chalak or chalitza? Omar Abchia bar Abba Rab Yochanan, Omar Kra, the pasuk says in the parasha of Yibum, Asher lo yivne es beis achiv, and the word base is in the singular. Bayis echad atubone v'eno bone shnei batu. So the Yavam only builds up one house. He's only chayav in one single Yibum or chalitza, and not two. The Gemara asks, v'nichlotz l'chavayu. Okay, fine. As far as binyan is concerned, it says binyan bayis echad, and not shnei batin. That's for the Yibum side. But what on the chalitza side? How do you know the chalitza of one of them will patter up the other tzara? Maybe each one needs her own individual chalitza. The Gemara says, Amar Zutra bar Tuvia Amar Kra. The pasuk says, Beis chalutz hanal. And we're going to derive from that pasuk, bayis echad hu choletz, Yein choletz shnei batim. The Gemara says, wait a minute. Okay, you've reduced the number of yibums to one and the number of chalitzas to one. Maybe one chalitza and one yibum is required. V'niyavim l'chadam v'nichlotz l'chadam. Our answer is Amakra imlo yachvot. Torah says that chalitza is because he didn't want yibum, meaning chalitza is the flip side of yibum. Ha chafetz yamim. If he wants yibum, he wants yibum. And he'll do Yibum. He doesn't need Chalitza. So it's always a choice decision, a choice between Yibum and Chalitza. Call it Ola Yibum, Ola Chalitza. When you can check off two boxes, so to speak. You have two options. You have Yibum and Chalitza. That's when the mitzvah applies, of either Yibum or Chalitza. But Kosher Eino Ola Yibum. If there's no option of Yibum, Ein Ol Chalitza. She doesn't require Chalitza. It's a package deal. And it's Haba Hatalia. Now, once he was miyabim one of these two wives, he cannot be miyabim the second one, as we derived earlier from the drasha of Bayis Echad Hu Bona V'lo Shnei Batim. And therefore, there's no need for Chalitza. And the Tzar is Muteres L'Shuk without Chalitza. The Ode, not only that, the Chacham made a gzeira, they don't want chalitza. Shelo Yomru, because if he'll do Yibum with one of them and chalitza with the other one, then the spectators will come to the mistaken conclusion that Bayis Miktsaso Bani Miktsaso Chalitz. That Yibum for one and chalitza for the other. So the Gemara asks V'yomru, so what's so terrible about that? What kilkul is going to come out if they think that there's a miktas that needs binyan, which is yibum, and the other miktas needs chalitza? And the Gemara answers, if he'll do it in the right sequence, start with yibum of one of them, and then go on to chalitza the other tzara, hachinami, that's really true. That's not a kilkul. Ella, but what we're afraid of is Dilma Chalitz for Hadar B'Yavim. If he switches around the order, then if he starts with Chalitza and then he does Yibum to the Tzara, he'll violate the law of Lo Yivne. And that we have to avoid at all costs. V'ema if there's one Yevamot, Tiskayim mitzvahs Yibum, without Yevamot, he'll become the mitzvah of Yibum. But Ki Ika Tarti, if there are two Yevamos or more, Lo Tiskayim mitzvahs Yibum. The Yevamos are allowed to marry Mutaris L'Shuk, marry anyone without any Yibum or Chalitza. And we'll interpret the pasuk as saying Bayis Echad Hu Bona, meaning if there's only one bias to be Bona, one Yevama, then he's obligated in Yibum. But if there are two Batim, there's no mitzvah of Yibum. In Cain, the Gemara answers, when there are two Yevamos, and both of them will be P'turas Min HaYavam, is Tzaras Erva, the Asarachmana Lomali. Why did the Torah say that there's an Isser of a Tzara of an Erva? If there's a tzara, then by definition you have two yevamos. And you're telling me that there's no yibum in such a case. So why did you have to tell me that she's asura? If there's no yibum, obviously she's asura. Hashta shtayim bi alma. If there are two, and the law is according to Yahava, meaning that none of them are asura al yavam, is amrit lav b'nei chalitza v'yibum minhu. They're both p'turas min hayibum. Is then tzaras erva miboy. It goes without saying that the tzar of an erva doesn't need yibum. Gemara answers, Alom alo, itzrich. We need to pater up the tzaras erva from yibum. Why? Salkid akamina erva ibroi kaima. The erva herself, if there are two yevamos, two tzaros, and one of them is an erva. So the erva is on the outside. She never falls for yibum at all. And therefore, to siyabin tzaros, because in effect there's only one bias and there's only one yevama, kamashman asira, that he's not allowed to be miyabin the tzara, because she's considered like any yevama that fell for yibum, meaning the erva, and she patters up a tzara. So it's not that she's excluded from the entire parsha of yibum. So we have now shtei yevamos. So now we go back to our original kasha. Let's exclude from this pasuk in a case where two yevamos fell for yibum, and let's raise the possibility that in such a case of two yevamos, both are p'turas min hayibum and chalitza. And then if you'll ask me, why do I need the tour of tzaras erva? That's because I would have had a havamina that a tzaras erva really falls only by herself. Ella, says the Gemara, from the fact that the Torah repeated itself. It says, V'im lo yachpotza ish lakachas es yevimto. And then it says, V'im also yevimto. Hashara es el azkenim. So the word yevimto appears twice in the pasuk, seemingly redundant and unnecessary. Riba to ribui. And it's being marba that even if there are two yevamos, there's a need for yibum. The Mishnah says, Ha'yachas kshera, v'yachas psula, im ha'yacholetz lipsula, as we explained in the previous shir. Rav Yosef Kanshon, a Rebbe, on this din, Rebbe taught us a mashal, a limud. Shalo yishpoch adam mei boro v'acherim tzrichim lehem. Don't throw out the dishwater when other people could possibly use it. So why should you passel someone for kahuna by giving them chalitza when they're kshera? All you have to do is give chalitza to the psula. The Mishnah says, if a man violates a law, and after he divorced his wife, she was married to another man, and after that man died or gave her a get, he remarried her, or hanose chalutzaso, if a person violates the law of lo yivne, and he marries his chalutza, or hanose krovas chalutzaso, he marries the mother, the sister, or the daughter of the chalutza. In all these cases, Yotzi is chayiv to be megarisha, and here's Rabbi Akiva's breakthrough shita, Vlad Mamza, div Rabbi Akiva, Chachomarim ein Vlad Mamza. This is only a violation of a lav, and chayve lavin do not generate mamzer. So modim, but the Chacham agree, benosei krovas grushaso. If a man divorced his wife, and subsequently he has an intimate relationship with her mother, her sister, her daughter, Vlad Mamzer. Grushaso is keishto. And when he has a relationship with one of her krovos, he's chayiv kares, and the child that's born from that chayiv kares is a mamzer, even according to the Chacham. The Gemara says, "V'sav Rabbi Akiva hanose krovas chalutzaso havlad mamzer." Could it be that according to Rabbi Akiva, if a man marries the mother, the sister, or the daughter of the chalutza, the child from such a relationship is a mamzer? V'amar Reish Lakish, the one who said that Kan Shona Rebbe, in this Mishnah, Rebbe taught us that the p'tur of achos grushaso from chalitza and the requirement of chalitza to achos zukukoso, and Rebbe said that the achos grushoso is potur from chalitza. He requires chalitza to achos grushoso. I'm sorry, to achos chalutzoso as opposed to achos grushoso. And the reason is because achos grusha is midivrei Torah, achos chalutz is midivrei sofrim. The Rabbanim made a gzera and they equated chalitza with gerushin, and they were afraid that if somebody would be matir the achos chalutzoso, mistakenly they would think that you're allowed to be matir achos grushoso. But how could Rabbi Akiva say that the vlad of achos chalutzoso, or any krov of chalutzoso, the mother, the daughter, is a mamzer? We're talking about a violation of an Issa D'Rabbanan. Tani, the Gemara says we have to change the girsa in the Mishnah, and the girsa, the correct girsa should say krovas grushaso, not krovas chalutzoso. That's a mistake, but rather krovas grushaso, which is an Issa D'Oraisa, and the violation therefore generates mamzerus. Hachinami mistabra, the Gemara says we have to change the girsa. That's logical. The Kadhani Sefer, it says in the Sefer of the Mishnah, umodim benose krovas grushaso shavlad mamzer. So you see, we're talking about krovas grushaso. We're not talking about krovas chalutzoso. Iyamrit bishlema ayriba. Rabbi Akiva is talking about krovas grushaso. I know the Kadhani umodim. That the Rabbanan agree in the case of achos grushaso or krovas grushaso, that the blood is a mamzer. If you're telling me that we're not dealing with krovas grushaso, but rather with krovas chalutzaso, is my umodim. What does that mean, umodim? I mean, they're talking about two different things. Who are they moded to? So Gemara rejects this logical proof. Dilma hakamashmalon the chachamim, by saying modim chachama, teaching us the yesh mamzer mechayve krisus. Now, it's even though they disagree with Rabbi Akiva about chayve lavim, they concede in the case of chayve krisus. And the Gemara says, no, it's impossible to say that the chachamim are coming to teach us that the child of a chayve krisus relationship is a mamzer. Haktani la, look, come on, we have it in Mishnah later on in Memtes. Ezu mamzer kol she'er basar shehu below yavo. Divrei Rabbi Akiva lo yavo means you violate with this bia a lot. Rabbi Shimon atimni omer kol shechayoven aleh kares bidei shamayim. Then the vlad is a mamzer. V'alocha kidvara. There's no mamzer from chayvei lav. We reject Rabbi Akiva la alocha, so there's no need to teach me this din here. So we see a raya that we have to change the girsi, and the Gemara rejects that too. Maybe we need the Mishnah to be a stam Mishnah and teach us that we pass like Rav Shimon Atimni against Rabbi Akiva. So Gemara asks him, Cain, if the Tana is coming to create a stam Mishnah, there's mamzer, but only in chayve krisus, not in chayve lavim, Lisnei shar chayve krisus. Krovas grushaso lama. Why of all chayve krisus does he focus his attention on krovas grushaso? El shmamina ariba, because Rabbi Akiva here in this Mishnah is talking about krovas grushaso, and that's what the girsa should be. Krovas grushaso. The Gemara asks, V'dilma liolam lo ariba. We're not going to be goris in the Mishnah Krovas Grushaso. The Chacham are coming to give us a stam Mishnah Allah is like Rabbi Shimon Atimni. And you ask me, so why did he mention Dafka Krovas Grushaso and not other examples of Chayve Krisus? And the answer is, Aidi the Tana Machsa Grushaso, since in the Reish of the Mishnah he mentions Machsa Grushaso, and V'nosei Chalutzaso, Ukrovas Chalutzaso. And the Chacham disagree with Rabbi Akiva in these cases. Therefore, Taninami Krovas Grushaso. He mentions in the Sefer, in order to parallel, be symmetrical with the Reisha, Krovas Grushaso, but according to Rabbi Akiva, Krovas Chalutzaso is Asurim in Torah. Ella, So now we go back and ask the question, Krovas Chalutzos Rabbi Akiva Mamzer? That's very difficult. We learned, and we had it before, that Krovas Chalutzos is only D'Rabbanan. Rab Chia bar Abba, Rab Yochanan, Hainu time of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva holds that Krovas Chalutzoso is Asur min Torah. Not like what we learned earlier, that Krovas Chalutzoso is only Gzeir D'Rabbanan Otu Grushoso. The Omakra, Beis Chalutzanal, Akosuf Kro Beso. The Torah went out of its way to describe Chalutza as Beso, which means Chalutza Keishto. And therefore, her Krovos, like the Krovos of his wife, the mother, the sister, and the daughter, Asurim in Torah. And if that's an Isur Torah, then it generates Mamzeros. Omer Rav Yosef, Omer Rav Shimon bar Rebbe, Hakol, even those who say that there's no Mamzer b'Chavilav, and Modim b'Machzir Gruchoso, if he remarries his wife after divorcing her when she marries someone else, and now that someone else dies or divorces her, the Torah says in Ki Teitze Lo Yuchal Baila Rishon Asher Shilcha Loshuv Lekachto Lios Lo. And here on Memdalid on Membeis Shavlad Pogu Lekahuna, even though the child that's born from his Grushoso is not a mamzer, because we're going quite chacham or very kiva. Nevertheless, the vlad is pogum. Let's say it's a bas, a girl. She cannot marry a kohen. She has the status of a chalol, a man hakol modim shimon atimni. The afagav the omer shimon atimni. Ein mamzer michavi lavim nehida mamzer lo havi pogum mia havi. And now the Gemara is going to try to derive this halacha that after a person is machzir gruchoso, which is chayvei lavim, the child, let's say the daughter, is pogum, she's psula lakuna, she has the status of a chalola, and the Gemara is going to try to derive this from a kal vachomer.